How is everybody doing on this? It's Friday. It's Friday.
We're
hang
so
out
we're
with
live
us
on
for the next
Instagram.
30
We're
minutes or
trying
so.
to stream this
so
also
exciting.
for the
So
mamas that are
exciting.
only
So
on
happy to be
Facebook.
here on
And it
this
looks like we're up.
very hot
we're
in
good.
Florida Friday. We hope that you all,
live here,
wherever you are tuning in from, are keeping
California.
cool.
How is everybody
and
doing on this?
everybody is
It's
doing
Friday.
well. So we are so excited because we are
You get to hang out
going
with
to
us
be
for the next
talking
30
all
minutes
about
or so.
breastfeeding, lactation,
So exciting. We're so happy to be here on this
been living under
very hot in Florida Friday.
August
we hope that you
Breastfeeding
all,
Awareness
wherever
Month.
you are tuning in from,
So we're really excited
you're up
to
early.
have this amazing opportunity to work alongside Emulait.
Because we are
remember that bottle that went viral?
all about
Yes, so we are going alongside Emulait today in honor of
if you don't
Breastfeeding
know,
Awareness
you've been
Month.
living under a rock.
If you didn't know,
So
Breastfeeding Awareness Month was established
August
in
is Breastfeeding
2011
Awareness
by
Month.
the USBC,
So
which
we're
is
really excited
which is
to
short for the United
have
States
this amazing
Breastfeeding
opportunity
Committee.
to work alongside
Every year they have a
Emulait.
special kind of
Remember
anthem.
that bottle that went viral?
You can check
Yes,
that
so
all
we
out on
are
their
going
website,
alongside Emulait today,
usbreastfeeding.org.
in
and
honor of
this is
Breastfeeding
our
Awareness
way.
Month. If you
I
didn't know,
really like
Breastfeeding Awareness Month was
I feel like
established
it really
in
goes along
2011 by the
Prego
USBC,
Expo. And
which is short
our
for the
way.
United States
This is your
Breastfeeding
way,
Committee.
whatever way.
Every year they have
is,
a
whatever
special kind of
fits
anthem.
your family and your style.
You can check that all
That
out
is
on
the
their
way you
website,
should go. So I think it's like
usbreastfeeding.org.
really
And this
important
year
for us
is
all
this is
to
our
be
way. I
compassionate
really like
with
that
one
anthem
another and
because I feel like it really
understanding
goes
and
along
It goes
with
hand in hand
Prego
with like
Expo.
mental health
And
too.
this
So
is
whatever
our way.
is great for
This
your
is
mindset,
your way, whatever way that
is what you
is,
need
and whatever.
Yep. So we
fits
have
your
Emulait
family
here.
and your
We are going to
style,
be talking
that
with
is the way you
Wicks.
should go.
She's
So
a
I
director
think
of
it's like really important for us all
program
to
for Emulait.
be
She's an RN.
compassionate with
She's a
one
nursing
another and
educator. She's an
understanding and encouraging.
IBCLC.
It goes hand in hand with like mental
she's
health
everything.
too. So whatever
on the
is great
screen
for your
here.
mindset,
I can't imagine
that
having
is what
4
you need
children.
to do.
My
Yep.
parents.
So
did
we
it,
have Emulait
but
here. We are going to be talking with Dawnita Wicks. She's the director of lactation program for Emulait. She's an RN. She's a nursing educator. She's an IBCLC. I mean, she is just
mama.
I'm doing great too. Yeah, I had an exciting children to talk about just the importance of helping moms go through this journey where they're babies.
Hi, good morning. How are you ladies doing?
We're doing
coast to coast.
How are you?
And it was.
I'm doing great too. Yeah, I had an exciting
we're trying
week
to
out in West
get us
Hollywood,
up
getting
on
to
Facebook,
talk about
but I think that there's
just
like
the
a
importance
small
of
echo.
helping moms go through this
mute us.
journey where they're feeding their babies and getting to work with people actually from all over the world and like coast to coast here in the US, and it was just really an amazing time.
We're trying to get us up on Facebook, but I think that there's like small echo. Yeah.
Well, let's take that moment just to see so moms can be connected and nobody is separated from getting to hear this information, right? Oh, I'm excited for all the moms that are joining us this morning. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah, let us know where you're tuning in from. I know some people are from California. I saw
yes.
Chicago there, so that's really exciting. People from all over.
So I'm joining you this morning from Orange County.
So if you can hear us on Facebook, I give you like some part of it so that we're not. So if you can just, hey Clara, can they hear us or no?
There we go.
We're trying to be able to like stream because when we do Instagram lives, it's great, but it's like we want to be able to share this on all platforms and
exactly.
It's so hard, so I thought I found a way to do it. Good. Okay. Thumbs up. You're so smart. Good job.
There we go.
So apologies.
Patient for a good cause.
So again, we are so happy to have you, Dawnita, here with us.
Thank you.
You are not only the director of lactation program for Emulait, you are also an RN. You're nursing educator, you're an IBCLC, you're an SME on feeding and newborn care, you're a mom of 4. You are so many things that our mamas need. So we don't want to take a lot of time. We want to talk a lot about all of these important details because I know that the moms and families are just really, really excited to hear about Emulait, hear about breastfeeding, human feeding, all of the above.
And then also
absolutely. You know, I always say that the fact that I have 4 children is my greatest.
Dawnita, we're kind of losing you a little bit. Your connection is not that.
We coming back?
Yes, you're coming back. Good.
Okay, I just was closing or opening with the fact that I have 4 children. I always say that that's my greatest achievement, and I feel like I've earned my PhD in mom.
100% have, for sure. So
all right.
With that being said, let's just kind of go right into it and talk about the Emulait bottle, talk about feeding in general, breast human feeding, and just kind of discuss how that, Emulait really closes that gap between the breast and the bottle and all of those maybe misconceptions that moms may have about using a bottle while breastfeeding.
Absolutely. Well, when it comes down to it, there's really no discussion anymore. I feel like everybody understands the depth of the health effects that it has on us as people when the baby doesn't have exposure to the breastfeeding in the beginning, only because, and there's different factors to that. I think most of the community get really caught up on it's because breast milk is better. And so essentially what happens is we go, well, then if I'm having latch issues, or for me and my family, it works out to pump and to be able to just bottle feed, then I'll just do that. Because the primary issue is just the milk is better, right? But there's actually so many complex elements about it. And so I really feel like that's where my professional background ended up melding together. And when I, became a part of this product and this movement, actually, it was like climactic, because it isn't just the health of the milk, it's actually the process of feeding. And so by biomimicking, right, mimicking what is natural and unbroken and perfect, we're really able to address the different elements of why breastfeeding is so healthy for the human. And it's not just because of the milk, it's also because of the emotional connection that we get as a caretaker and baby when we are in close proximity, when we are touching, and when we're making eye contact. It's just like when you get a puppy or you're dating your spouse and you can't stop looking at each other, you both release, right, hormones that make you fall in love. And so that's what's happening when we nurse our babies. And so when you have a bottle where you can actually embrace a natural position rather than what is necessary on the market up to this point, where you have to hold a baby in an unnatural position so they're not flooded with milk. And so we have the health of the milk, we have the relational aspect of it, which is neurological development also in there. But we also have the digestive comfort. And so many families are dealing with unexpected gas issues, and they erroneously have believed this disinformation that it's related to swallowed air. I know there are hundreds of minds being blown right now, but because of my background and working with hundreds upon hundreds of families, I started to realize, oh my gosh, these families are thinking the gas is coming from swallowed air. It's really not. It's coming from high volumes of milk that's being digested. So these babies are going to the buffet for every meal. That's where gas is created, right? It's actually impossible to swallow gas and for it to come out the other end. I can tell you that as a nurse. So what's happening is they're digesting way too much milk. And if you don't have a bottle that mimics what's not broken in every way, then there's really almost no way to achieve all 3 of those elements. The healthiest milk available and that you choose as a family, the relational aspect of feeding your infant, and then also the digestive regulation and comfort that comes with mimicking the biological process. So that's why Emulait bottle is absolutely so different, and it really is just revolutionary. We're moving into acknowledging just how impactful natural feeding is, and then putting that in the hands of families so that they now have the choice of freedom. They now have the choice of being able to say, I want to feed my baby in a way where I'm not confused. I'm able to read my baby's cues. I'm able to feel comfortable with the fact that my baby is full and comfortable. And we bonded in the experience. And that's really Emulait in a nutshell.
I love that. I think that like bottle feeding for mom, you for all need it. Sometimes we know that like breast milk is very like it's liquid gold, but it also like mental health is very important. All need, you know, I think that, you know, the second parent as well, they want to be involved in the process, all of that. This bottle helps.
Helps close that gap where you're making a choice and now there isn't the choice between, I actually need a physical and mental break right now. I'm all touched out. We might be tapping into some postpartum emotional issues that need to be supported with a little bit more rest than maybe the natural cycle of eating every 2 to 3 hours will provide. And so it's important also, if you are a breastfeeding mom that's using pumping and bottling to make that possible, to stay connected with either a lactation consultant or following really good, simple information so that you're not making choices in your pumping routine that will sabotage that natural process too. And that's really where we're hoping to be able to address supporting healthy feeding for mom and baby and family and baby in an all-around way. So what happens is families a lot of times end up in these unexpected pitfalls, and they don't understand why.
Falls that comes to bottle feeding.
That's it exactly. The number one is going to be what I had mentioned. I'm going to bring in our classic one. I was just holding our anatomy one here. The number one pitfall is going to be overfeeding. And really you get into a cycle. For those who are expecting, hear me. Note this down. For those who already have babies, listen for those symptoms right now, because here could be your simple answer. What ends up happening is you have this range of milk that's recommended, right? And I want you to know the why behind that. It's because a naturally fed baby will take about that much milk when they're that old and at that weight. And so what happens is when the bottle fed baby eats off of a classic bottle, right, off of the other bottles that are hard silicone and fast flowing, then they're done in like maybe 5 minutes, right, 7 minutes. And it's a stressful process because they're having to manage suck, swallow, and breathing. But what happens is they get to the end of their 2 ounces, maybe their 3 ounces, and they still physically look hungry. And parents, we have this innate understanding, and we're like, my baby's not settled. And when they offer milk, it settles baby. But what happens is then they are overfed, and an hour and a half later, they are waking up from the nap, they're screaming, and the only thing that seems to settle them is another feed. And now we're in the pattern of doing those big feeds. And so it is definitely the baby is demanding the milk, but when we can replicate from the get-go a more natural process where we bring in, and I wanted the moms to be able to get a chance to see like that dynamic feel on top where you can see the Montgomery glands, right? And it's a little firmer here as the baby engages. The baby's able to feel that, right? And they're able to enjoy suckling and actually latching to a bottle. And I use that term very specifically because as an expert in the field of feeding infants, latching is like exclusively held for the breast, you know, when we're talking about it, but a baby actually has the opportunity to enjoy latching here. And as they do it, you will latch with the Emulait bottle different than you have seen bottles being given to babies for your whole life, because there's never before been something that has biomimicked breastfeeding. So there is even a learning curve in that. We want to hold baby in a natural position and really give them a chance to latch onto this bottle, similar to the breast. And then what happens is the baby is able to relax and able to get a very satisfying feeding experience along with satisfied from the milk. And so with that, they kind of come out of that cycle that even unbeknownst to, say, the new parent who may not know everything I just shared, they don't fall into that pitfall. And so that's one of the things that as a professional, I'm so excited to be able to put into the hands of parents.
Yeah, I see a mom on here. She's like, oh, first time parent, like this is such good information. Like I'm
awesome.
And then a third time parent, she's like, this makes total sense. And like, you know, think back on your feeding journey of your babies if you had them before and them getting the gas and you're like, it's a very stressful thing. Like, you know, what I'm eating, you know, you have all these questions, you know, help eliminate that.
Yeah, absolutely. So can we talk a little bit, I know especially for like first time moms, there's that terminology of nipple confusion when it comes to bottle feeding, and can we kind of talk a little bit through that, because I know a lot of the moms probably, especially first time moms, I'm sure have heard that term, and a second, I mean, we've heard that kind of terminology of the whole nipple confusion.
Oh, I would love nothing more than to get to educate a wide community on what this truly is. So when it comes to nipple confusion, the deepest part of understanding that is going to be the sensory experience that a baby has when they latch on to the nipple and the areola in their mouth. So from the experience so far, the nipples from regular bottles have that pretty hard silicone. And so there's really not much give that happens on that. When an infant is born, for the first 1.5 to 3 months, they are filled with reflexes that guide them to eat, and they can't resist it. They simply can't. So when you have a bottle who has a hard silicone nipple, it engages that suck reflex extremely hard and very satisfyingly. But it then becomes harder for the baby to go back to the mother's natural breast, which could by no means be able to satisfy that reflexes urge the way that bottle can. And that's one of the reasons why the nipple shield is used, is to help get babies back, like say those who were discharged from NICU and have been exclusively breastfed on traditional bottles offered in that environment. I've worked with these families for years. And so what happens is sometimes we'll offer them that nipple shield because it also has that hard silicone tip, but it brings baby back to the breast. And so what that offers is that same hard sensation. So what we've done here with the soft silicone top is that you'll notice the nipple actually compresses and moves. It does have a folding element to it here. And I do want to show on the inside, once I pull that out, the ducts that have been replicated, because the purpose of them is that when the baby latches here, they're feeling that tissue in their mouth. And so it's really, nipple confusion is a sensory experience, and it's talking about overstimulating the baby's reflexes initially to eat. And then once you get past 3 months, now it's will and skill. Now you have a baby who is simply dependent and only knows that way to eat. And so that's how the traditional nipples can cause confusion between going back to the natural human breast and then and then feeding from those. So one of the goals of designing the Emulait bottle was to be able to help a mom feed their baby with a bottle in so many different situations. You touched on one of them, when mom needs a break. And then just consider how many tens of hundreds of other reasons there are. Babies in the hospital, babies in NICU, moms at work, mom, they don't breastfeed at all. Mom is a survivor of breast cancer, and that's not a possibility for her. Perhaps when she was younger, she had some augmentive surgery, and the surgeon didn't really have this in mind. There's so many different situations that I've come across where bottles were needed, and what this offers is a less confusing option for the baby when you choose your bottle. Yeah, so that's going to be nipple confusion. Sometimes what families do is they will think that flow confusion is also a part of nipple confusion, but it's another part of it, because when the milk flows quickly, then it's not quite like mom's. And you'll see that babies will be in a stressed state when they're bottle feeding. Their fists will be very tight next to their face. But what we've done in the design of this nipple, and it's the absolute only one, is there are 6 holes around the nipple. And now a mother's nipple has far more, right? But we can only biomimic perfection as close as we can. But all other bottles have usually 1, up to 3 for a few, but this one actually has 6 very small holes, so that when the baby comes in and latches nutritively, they're experiencing that spray that they would feel at the breast, and they're having to work for it. So do you feel like you understand nipple confusion a little better there?
I definitely understand confusion, and it makes so much sense as to.
I'd love to hear that.
Moms get a lot of that confused. I think it goes alongside with the gas thing too. You know, it makes so
absolutely
kind of really think of it kind of scientifically in a sense, and you're like, oh yeah, that makes complete and utter sense.
This is the part that really blew my mind when I first saw the
right
bottle. I was like, no way, that is so cool.
It was the first thing that I touched when I met this bottle. And as a lactation expert, I immediately went for the nipple, and I looked up and I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And then when I touched the areolar portion and the Montgomery glands were there, and then I was able to actually like hand express and there was spray, I was like, this is crazy. I do see one comment on here I would love to be able to address, because there's maybe like a misunderstanding that because of the shape of this nipple and areola, right? Babies don't nipple feed, they breastfeed. Because of the wide shape, that it's going to promote a shallow latch. And I want to explain why that understanding is out there, and then I want to let you know why this is different. So when you look at the bottles that are currently on the market, the first level of understanding, like evolution, that the bottle, you know, production has gone through is when, you know what, maybe we should try to look a little bit more like the breast compared to those really narrow bottles. And so they did, but they stayed with the same hard silicone. That does promote a shallow latch. So I just want to let this mom know, because that comes up a lot, and even comes up with professionals. I want to let you know, like I mentioned, I'm a nurse educator. As I'm working with lactation consultants, postpartum nurses, NICU nurses, there's a thought that, you know, we really, the whole thing, the baby will stay right on the nipple if we have a wide base. But now go back to what we talked about with biomimicking. This matches the natural anatomy of most women. This is based off of an ultrasound study, right? This isn't just an idea. And so with that, because this tissue-like silicone is part of the bottle, it does not promote a shallow latch, because as it's brought in deep into the baby's mouth, they're able to create a suction and pull it in. And so if you see a shallow latch where the baby's simply gumming the nipple of the Emulait bottle, they are just being latched incorrectly, because it's being presented like the old classic bottles where babies could suck their way in by those hard nipples. But here, just like on the human breast, you can't do that, right? Because they breastfeed, they don't nipple feed. So here they need to be truly latched. Then they're able to enjoy the full function of the breast-like bottle.
So kind of elaborate on that, and I know like moving forward with like science, product development, to ensure that you have like evidence results. Well, do you have like a science board that kind of makes sure kind of, can we talk a little bit about that and how that board?
Oh, I would love to.
What they do to kind of move forward, making ensuring that you have proper latching and all of these amazing things that Emulait currently has.
Absolutely. It's really one of the things that have made this bottle and the innovative nature of it possible, because quite frankly, you've seen the products in the past and you cannot arrive at something that is this revolutionary if you don't have experts telling you what is needed. So the scientific review board was brought in at the development of all this, and infant feeding experts who are renowned in this field from across the world were brought together. Mike Woolridge in the UK is just one of them. And, you know, he has helped to write over 100 evidence-based research articles on infant feeding. And so he's a specialist in the suckling motion that happens inside of an infant's mouth. And so this, along with Linda Hanna, who is a lactation consultant out of California and has been helping families for well over 20 years to feed their babies. Lactation has been involved with this from the beginning, and that's what's different. Now, so there's the initial design, and they were looking at the factors that they wanted to include to make sure that this was as close to nature as possible. And then after that came to be, the scientific review board is still its active part of every step that we take forward. In fact, even this week, as we came together and we were discussing, you know, how best to meet the needs of moms and families and babies across, you know, internationally, a member of the scientific review board was with us in that. And so, and we are talking about a nurse leader internationally. And so who is committed to evidence-based practice where compromise is not an option. And that's one of the reasons why professionally, I am embracing being a part of this. Because it's different.
Before we wrap up, because I know there's just so much information, everyone's just loving how the colors. Everyone's like loving the fact that there are so many skin tones. So how do you do that? How does that work? Because I'm sure there are moms that haven't seen your product yet, want to understand how that.
Right. So what I decided to do is bring the bookends this morning and this afternoon, depending on where you are. And so you can see our lighter shades and our richer shades that are available for moms. And for the first time, both ends are represented. And so when they first arrived at the colors, this was based on the research that was done looking at the 5 most common skin tones, so that as much as possible, every mother could be represented, see themselves in feeding this bottle, and also the baby can experience that mother-like experience. Because if all the moms out there know their bottles change or their body's changing, our areolas darken for a reason. It isn't just for, you know, randomly. It's so that the baby can come in and engage and see. And so they all darken. And so it's also an experience for the baby. And so they followed the same techniques that major cosmetic companies follow in being able to match that skin tone and that richness. As a mom goes in to choose, she has the 5 shades to choose from that she feels like would best represent the color change she has experienced. I usually find that if you're in the last few months of pregnancy, you've probably already experienced that color shift and that you're safe to go ahead and choose. But Emulait is wonderful. If you need to go back in and make an alteration, then they support you through that so that they can supply you with nipples that better represent what the baby's naturally having when they do go to the breast. You know what? I had a hard time hearing that. Can you tell me again?
Yeah, so there's an Emulait app. I was able to get at one of our.
Yes. Yes, the moms can go right into the app. They can go through the scanning process, and it is not a photograph that's taken by any means. This is definitely protective of your privacy. It's more of a scan, and what they do is identify, you know, the outer shape so they know where you fall, and then also the different sizing. And there's a total of 5 of the nipples: width, length, and all of that. And so it'll guide you, and number 4 is the most common.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think that there's so much information and there's so much to learn. You can always follow Emulait online. They've got a plethora of details. Did you see any questions in there, Dawnita, that you that kind of stuck out to you here before we finish up our amazing live too?
You know what? Maybe one last, because I know as moms, we also want to support proper oral development. And so we do have, of course, the bottles, but I have to say the pacifier deserves noting. You'll notice that it's a little bit different here. And we've had, I think our last live was with the pediatric dentist, and we just talked about the importance of the posterior palate development. And this is different, not breast-like on purpose, because when a baby's pacifying, they're actually just kind of doing a quivering, suck. They're not meant to be fully engaging and wasting that energy. And so that's really what went behind the pacifier design. And then also the deep latch that the baby does get on this bottle promotes tissue being in that posterior portion. And so pediatric dentists have noticed just a huge increase in narrow palates that aren't being developed because babies aren't breastfeeding as much. And so I think that just deserves being noted, because I think that mothers are interested in making sure that every element of their baby's health is addressed when they choose to bottle feed.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me here this morning.
Thank you so much. And again, you can always visit Emulait online or follow their social channels. Don't forget, August is Breastfeeding Awareness Month. You can always find out more information at usbreastfeeding.org. Dawnita, if they have questions, is there a way to connect with anybody in, you or somebody from Emulait? Is there a special way to connect?
There really is, and this is part of the lactation program that I'm so thankful to be directing. You can email me directly at asklactation@emulait.com, and I can answer your questions and support you in your journey.
That's wonderful. Well, thank you so much to you, Dawnita, for helping us guide our attendees in whatever direction they want to go in. But
absolutely,
listen, education is key. The more that we know, the better that we are as parents, as people. So if this bottle and this amazing journey works for you, we are so thrilled to be able to offer you the guidance
absolutely
and suggestions. So once again, thank you so much to you, Dawnita, and to Emulait.
Congratulations, mamas to be and mamas that are.
Thank you. We'll see you really soon. Bye.
Yeah, we've got to talk
about the giveaway.
So we are giving away a starter kit. We're actually giving two away this month. One we will give away today. So if you watch the live, we're going to repost this live, comment below, click the link in the bio, and fill out all your information, and you will be entered. We will pick a winner by the end of today. And then you're also going to be entered into the raffle at the end of the month.
Wow, so much.
Good luck, Mom.
Given away. All right, y'all. Remember all of that information. Thank you again to Dawnita for providing her details. My bra is sticking out. I'm sorry.
Hey, I think it goes with the theme.
I apologize. But no, thank you all so much. Listen, your comments, your questions, we understand everybody's journey is a little bit different. But just what's great is to be able to share all of this together and be able to choose what the right parenting path is for you. So once again, thanks again to Emulait, and we will see you all, some of you maybe in Chicago or at another show before the end of the year. Remember all of those details about how to enter the giveaway. What else, Sam?
That's it. We're just going to